Welcome back to Cinema Wellman. I'm your host, David. And today what we're going to do is we're going to break down the top 10 and bottom 5 films that we screened here at Cinema Wellman in the month of August. Hopefully you find something that you're interested in and you'll track it down and you'll watch it yourself. And then maybe you might get back to me and say, hey, you were right about that. I agree with you. Or, yeah, I don't quite share your thoughts on that one. And it's all good here at Cinema Wellman. You know that. We had 74 films that we screened in the month of August here. And some were good, some were rotten, and you're going to hear about 15 of them today. 5 bad, 10 really good. So if you want to see the complete list, go to the blog. The blog was posted for this piece. The blog was posted yesterday, and our IT department purchased cinemawellman.com for us. Thank you, IT department. And so now that's where the blog can be found going forward. All you have to do is go cinemawellman.com for all of our blogs. And today we're going to start with the bottom 5, as we always do. Which 5 were the worst that I watched in August? So here we go. We're going to start with number 5, and it's The Bling Ring. Now, this I'm sure has happened to you. You are lined up to watch a movie, or you hear about a movie. Oh, I really like this cast member. This story sounds good. I like this genre. I like this director. I like the writer, whatever. And then you watch it, and it stinks. And that's kind of what happened to me when I watched The Bling Ring. It's a heist movie. I love heist movies. Directed by Sofia Coppola. I love Sofia Coppola. Emma Watson's in it. I love Emma Watson. And I hated this movie. It doesn't always, the numbers don't always add up to, hey, that was good. This is the case. And when I watch a movie, sometimes it's like, okay, I don't like that. I'll let them slide on that. And then something else happens and you go, oh, really? Are we going to do? And then it gets too much. And that's what happened with this movie with me. There were too many things wrong with it for me to find it entertaining. Now, it's based on real events. And sometimes that's tricky because the filmmakers aren't sure about how, is the real stuff really that interesting to make a movie, or just is the idea of the real stuff interesting? And then we have to fill stuff in around it. If this is close, if these events are depicted in the movie realistically, there are a lot of stupid people involved when this happened in reality. So if you're not familiar with it, these high school kids, these rich, entitled high school kids in LA, they are all over social media, and they figure out that if they find a celebrity that's going to an event or out of town to shoot something, they go to their house and they rob it. And they like sit in their bedrooms and they like try on their clothes and their shoes, and then they take stuff, and it's really bizarre. So this is one of the things I had trouble with. One of the people is Paris Hilton. So bear with me here. The kids find out that Paris Hilton is going to be at an event, so they're going to rob her house. So Paris Hilton goes to this event. And you mean to tell me that if Paris Hilton goes to this event, there is no one left at her house, no staff, very little security? These kids just walk into these homes, these multi-million-dollar homes in these posh areas of Southern California and LA, and they just waltz right in. I don't think there's one scene where they are shown doing anything technically to override any security system. So that's ridiculous. There's a Peanuts level, cartoon level of parental non-involvement in this. And if you've ever seen a Peanuts cartoon, you know what I'm talking about. They don't exist. These parents don't exist until these kids get caught and they start to whine. The last straw for me is when there's nobody to root for. I hate movies like this. Glengarry Glen Ross comes to mind. Every character in it, you're just like, I don't like any of these people. Why am I watching? The latest Jurassic Park that had me rooting for the dinosaurs. I mean, that happens sometimes. So in this one, I had no one to root for. There are these rich, entitled white kids who are robbing these rich, entitled celebrities. And then the kids, when they get caught, they whine about it. It was very Aunt Becky, if you know what I'm talking about. I was kind of hoping, at the end when they're based on real events, at the end they'll say, hey, this person's here, this person's that. I was hoping they were all still in prison, but no such luck. Number 4 on the worst for August was from 1975, and it's Once Is Not Enough. This is one of those films that's on a list. I have a lot of lists. One of my goals is to see every film ever nominated for an Academy Award in any category. That's on me. So this one is all my fault. I watched Jacqueline Suzanne's Once Is Not Enough from 1975, and if it wasn't for Best Actress nominee, Supporting Actress nominee Brenda Vaccaro, I never would have gone near this. But that's what happens when you make lists and you stick to it. All right? So this is 1975, pure, overblown 1975 melodramatic garbage. It is a garbage movie based on a garbage novel by a garbage writer. Even the synopsis on IMDb is boring. Let's get on to something worse, believe it or not. 1996's One Fine Day. This is, of course, a romantic comedy from the 90s, and it's terrible. And that list seems to be never ending. This was also on a list because it was nominated for an Oscar. And this is the best original song. This gets me again. This is why I had to watch 50 Shades of Grey. And a lot of bad movies are nominated for Oscars for Best Original Song. And it's infuriating that, of course, I have to watch them. And then they only give me that song on the closing credits. So you have to sit through the entire thing. And then, okay, there's why they got nominated for an Oscar. I get it. No likable characters in this. Jack Taylor is the character played by George Clooney, and he's like this smarmy single dad. The filmmakers try to redeem him, but I'm not buying it. Michelle Pfeiffer plays the single mom, and they're strangers who meet because their kids both miss the bus for a field trip that they were supposed to go on. They miss the bus, they can't go on the field trip. The parents actually have to parent for the day with their busy 90s schedules, and chaos/boredom ensues. I'll tell you something. I was a teacher for 33 years and went on countless number of field trips. We never left on a field trip without a kid. This movie never could have been made where I taught. I had One Fine Day ruined by watching this movie. Next, number 2 from 2007, Boarding Gate, which you would say, ooh, this is like an airport thriller. It takes place at an airport. Yeah, maybe 15 minutes is at the airport. This could have been better titled Boring Gate. Convoluted mess this was. I hate movies that you're not quite sure what they want to be when they grow up. And this one was all over the place. And Michael Madsen's in it, and Michael Madsen's Michael Madsen, and Asia Argento, she's decent, but she can't help this one. The most interesting thing with Boarding Gate for me wasn't watching it. It was when I read online some of the reviews after I watched it and hated it so much. And I hated everything. I hated the performances. Madsen was awful. The music was terrible. It didn't seem to fit. The editing was choppy. All these things that I was going, no. And I'm reading these reviews, and the very things that I was complaining about in my head were things that were being praised and lauded by these other reviewers. And that is one of the best things about movies in my mind. And I'll bring this up and I'll get into it a little bit more when we do the top 10. And I'm talking about one of my movies in the top 10 because this topic comes up again. All right. Again, I'm just going to add, I never said I knew anything about movies. All I know is what I like. It's as simple as that. Okay. And number 1, the worst. The worst. What was worse? Was it worse than Ambulance last month? No. Was it bad? Yes, it was terrible. It was made in 1971 and it's titled The Last Movie. And for a while there, I thought it might have been the last movie I would ever watch because it soured me on movies. The only reason I watched this is that it was also on a list, not even close to an Academy Award. I also have a list of cult films that I want to watch. And I have a couple of books. One of them's right there, 500 cult films. And I have 3 others that have, 70 each. So there's a long list of cult films. And when you think of cult films, you might think of, or you should think of, well, Rocky Horror Picture Show? Yes, exactly. Not something that's going to be award-winning and great and phenomenal and fantastic, but something that's fun, something that you watch over and over and over, and it's got this cult following to it. That's where you get cult films, okay? The other thing you get with cult films is that most of them are pretty bad. And that's how they achieve their cult status. Like Troll is one of them. Troll's considered one of the worst movies ever made. And it's got a huge fan following because it's so bad. And a lot of cult films fit into that. Now, I had read, since it's in a couple of those books, I had read a lot about this. I had read about how incoherent this movie is. I had read about how Dennis Hopper and the cast and crew did copious amounts of drugs during this. And if you think drug taking and filmmaking go together, they don't. They don't at all. Coming up with the ideas when you're on drugs and then filming them, or coming up with the idea while you're on drugs and filming them while you're on drugs, neither seems to come out too successfully. And a documentary was made about the shooting of this film. That should be a red flag right away. They don't make documentaries about movies whose shoots were excellent. They make documentaries about movies like Apocalypse Now. That was a nightmare shoot. And that documentary is titled Hearts of Darkness. The film Fitzcarraldo was an absolute nightmare. They made a documentary about that. It's called Burden of Dreams. This movie had a documentary made about it, and I'm not going near it. But it is deserving of that based on what I've read. So enough of the stinkers. Let's see what was good in August. We're going to start with a very interesting film that mixes up a few things, and I'll start. It's titled Black Crab, and you can find it on Netflix. And the IMDb synopsis begins with, in a post-apocalyptic world. So I'm in. It doesn't matter what's after that. It doesn't matter. I'm in the front row for that. Definite. This is a Swedish action adventure film, so you're going to have to read. A little homework for you. And starring friend of Wellman, Noomi Rapace. Now, Noomi she plays one of a small group of soldiers on a secret mission to deliver a secret package across a frozen archipelago. So Swedish soldiers on skates, which is really cool. At night, they're crossing the archipelago, and they're all on skates, and they all have their weapons and everything, and it's pretty good. It's well shot. It's harrowing at times. If people are going across the ice, somebody's going in. There's a lot of harrowing action in it, and there's also a nice twist when you discover what's in the package. So this was well done. That is Black Crab. You can find it on Netflix. Number 9 of the best, Rise of a Bluesman, Stevie Ray Vaughan, 1954 to 1983. I found this on Hoopla. This was destined to end up in my top 10 because I love Stevie Ray Vaughan. He was always one of my favorite musicians. So sad when he passed his untimely death in a helicopter crash in 1983. I still miss him and his music and the amazing stuff that he had come out of that guitar, which you had no idea how he was making all of those noises and all those sounds come out of that simple little guitar that anyone could pick up. It looks at his life, his legacy, his rise to prominence, interviews that I had never seen with him. That was fantastic. Old performance footage, stunning, great stuff. I mean, not the quality of the film, but the fact that you can see Stevie playing when he was like in his early 20s. It's amazing. If you like Stevie Ray Vaughan, you probably have seen this already. If not, hunt it down on Hoopla and give it a look. It's excellent. Excellent, excellent. Number 8 is from 2022, and I watched it on Paramount Plus, and it's titled Secret Headquarters. And this was, Owen Wilson is in this, and Owen Wilson plays a dad who's an IT guy, normal everyday dad who his son discovers that he's a superhero. So they set up that kind of trope that it's the dad that's never around. Oh, I got a conference I have to go to. I have a case. And then he's really going around and saving the world. Son and his friends stumble upon the secret lair of superhero stuff, and it was fun. I looked at it was kind of like a little bit like Spy Kids and Sky High put together, and I like both of those. The kids are a little stereotypical, but still enjoyable. The gadgets they play with are fun, and they use them in their regular lives and stuff like that. And Michael Pena is great in it But Michael Pena is great in everything, actually. All around good time. It's a kid's movie. It's a family movie. It's kid friendly without being condescending. This is good escapist fare. You can watch with your kids. That is Secret Headquarters. You can find it on Paramount Plus. Number 7, I found on Netflix, and it's Day Shift. And Day Shift is from 2022. And this, I watched Day Shift and Secret Headquarters back to back, and they had some similarities. Regular, average, everyday dad with a secret life. So Owen Wilson in Secret Headquarters is this IT guy who's a superhero. In Day Shift, Jamie Foxx is a pool cleaner who happens to be a vampire hunter. And I liked a lot of this. I like Snoop Dogg's in it. You got to love that. He carries around this huge machine gun that's called Big Bertha. It's violent. It's a vampire movie, so it's violent. And I do want to mention that because this is from a relatively new production house titled 8711 Productions. And they're the ones that gave us all the John Wick movies. The 4th one's coming up soon. If you like John Wick, do some research on 8711 Productions, make a list of their films and watch them because you're going to love them all. 8711 has perfected this choreographed action, this stylized violence that makes one of the things that makes John Wick so appealing to audiences, I think. I also love that they used Cirque du Soleil performers to play these vampires who did all these odd contortions. So it adds a non-CGI realism to something that is totally unrealistic to begin with. But they're actually doing it. The performers are doing all this contorting and stuff that no one else can do. And it's creepy because they're vampires. I really like that. Now, this is what I wanted to get back to this. I wanted to go back to what I was talking about earlier when I was talking about one of the worst movies I saw. So a friend of mine sees this. He watches Day Shift, and he texts me after, and his text read, "Watch Day Shift on Netflix. Probably not worthy of one of your bombs, but close." And it ends up turning up in my top 10 of the month. Again, that is one of the things I love about movies. They are so subjective, unbelievably subjective, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's art. It's just like music. It's just like any kind of art. You're not going to like everything. I could like something, you could hate it. You could hate something, I could love it. It doesn't make any difference. It's all good here at Cinema Wellman. Remember, I hate Forrest Gump. I hate Titanic. I hate Top Gun. What do you know? Number 6 is a music documentary that I found on Netflix. It is titled Count Me In, and it's from 2021, and it is about drumming. So it's another musical documentary this month. We love our docs here at Cinema Wellman. The poster reads, "You can have rhythm without music. You can't have music without rhythm." And this is so true. The drums are such an essential part. The percussion, the drums and the bass are such an essential part of any kind of music. And this film takes a look at the complexity of what it takes to be a drummer and what your job is, really. And it's phenomenal. All your favorite drummers are here. They're all here. Ringo Starr, Charlie Watts, Ginger Baker, Stuart Copeland, Taylor Hawkins, John Bonham, Keith Moon, many more. My favorite, it's not my favorite band by any stretch of the imagination, but Iron Maiden's Nico McBrain was great in this. At one point, he's got 4 different beats going, one with each of his legs and each of his hands. And they're all different, and he's all doing it at the same time, and he's explaining it. It was tremendous. My daughter Dakota took drum lessons when she was younger, so we had a drum kit set up in our living room, and everybody that came into the house was like, "Hey, you got a drum set. Do you mind?" "No, go ahead, sit down. Pick up the sticks." And then they put them down after like 13 seconds and say, "Wow, I thought that was easier than that." I think a lot of people think it's easier than that, and that's one of the things I loved about this documentary because it kind of shows you that it's not. One of the cool things, I always thought that Ringo Starr was a throwaway. The respect in the Beatles, the respect that he is given in this documentary makes me think about it, Ringo, a little differently, definitely. And they also show an amazing little bit with Charlie Watts of the Rolling Stones, and they show a clip from Honky Tonk Woman, and the beginning, you know that song with he's got the little cowbell there, and it's so slow. And then they show the end of the song, and it's so fast, and yet you really don't notice him speeding up at all. It's like putting the frog in the pot and turning the heat up slowly. Don't do that, by the way. Number 5. Number 5 is Loving Adults, and this is found on Netflix. This is a Danish film. More reading for you, more homework for you. And this was a thriller. I read about it. I looked at the trailer and I said, I am in for a penny, in for a pound. And this was one of those films that after I watched it, I kept thinking about it. Like the next day, the day after that. Those are the best movies. There are other movies that I forget as soon as the credits are done. Wow, no impact at all. Others that stick with you, and some stick with you forever and become your favorites, and others stick with you for, weeks and months. And when your friend asks, hey, you see anything recently? You're like, I got to bring this up because this was a good one. Now, this one is a thriller, and it's got a couple of jaw-dropping twists. It's a slow burn. It's suspenseful. It's a married couple that have secrets aplenty, and they're played by Sonia Richter, who's very good, and Dar Salim, who was also in Black Crab. This marriage has some infidelity. There are some potentially criminal financial indiscretions, and there is, obviously trouble ahead for everyone involved. That is Loving Adults, and that is highly recommended. Number 4 on my list for the top 10 in August is from 2013, and it's titled Dear Mr. Watterson, and I found that on Hoopla. It's a magical world, Hobbs, old buddy. Let's go exploring. And if you recognize that line, then you're a fan of Calvin and Hobbes, and I am a friend of yours. Calvin and Hobbes is the best cartoon strip ever written, best comic ever, and I will not debate that. You can have Doonesbury, you can have Bloom County, you can have all that. It's Calvin and Hobbes. This documentary explores the strip without ever talking to Watterson. It talks to, it interviews and you hear from artists who were influenced by him. It goes into what made it so special and why it's so appealing and why it's not going away, even though new strips have not happened since 1995 and it's still not going away. If you're a fan of Calvin and Hobbes, you must see this. This was very, very sweet and heartwarming. I was hoping for an explanation of Calvin Ball, but I think some things are better left unexplained. Number 3, I found it on Hoopla, and I was looking through one night looking for things to watch on Hoopla. Saw this poster, and you look at that poster, and that poster is going to get your attention. It's like going to the craft beer store, and you find a label, and the label catches your eye, so you're like, you look at it a little more closely. You don't buy it immediately, but you read up a little bit on to see what kind it is and everything, but it's packaging. Same thing with this poster. This poster, I looked at it, I read it, it's got a lot of words on it, and I read those little reviews and everything, and I was just like, this, I am all over this. And it's a perfect example of why I'm willing to watch anything. This was a treat that I never would have run across other than me looking for movies to watch. Film was made by Isaac Esban, and then, again, you see this, you like it, see other things that Mr. Esban made. Do this all the time. If you find a film that, say a director hits it big, like Christopher Nolan. So Christopher Nolan, Inception and all those other ones, and then you really like those, then go back and see what he did before then, because you'd be surprised how good those movies are that you never heard of. And I always suggest you do that. And it's just like books. You read a book, you find another book by that author. It's all art. So this one is so ultra strange. The adjectives found on the poster, absolute perfect descriptors of this film. They include simply amazing, riveting, unique, entertaining, visceral, and strange. They all fit, as does the Twilight Zone mention. Here is from IMDb. On the rainy night of October 2nd, 1968, 8 characters waiting in a remote bus station for a bus heading to Mexico City start experiencing a strange phenomenon. And take my word for it, it's an unbelievably strange phenomenon that the special effects are wild. They will creep into your nightmares probably. One more thing about the poster. It has a little line on it that reads, 7,000 million people in the world, or only one. That was excellent. See that, the similars. You can find it on Hoopla. All you need is a library card on Hoopla. All right, number 2. I've got 2 to go. Infinitum, Subject Unknown. An experimental film made in 2021 during the COVID lockdown. And what makes it experimental, and we're all for experimental films, this was made with 1 crew member, really a cast of 2. They got Ian McKellen to do it, remotely of course, and it was shot on an iPhone. So that right away, you read about things like that and you're like, well, I gotta see this. I gotta see what this looks like. I shoot movies on my iPhone all the time. I wonder, wow, real filmmakers are doing this? So this is worth a look just for that. So Tori Butler Hart, she plays Jane. Jane's trapped in this parallel universe and is forced to find a way out of her predicament before it's too late. It's kind of like an escape room, but there might not be an escape for Jane from this room. Amazing to watch, especially knowing how it was made and under the circumstances which it was made. And again, I talked about this earlier with One Fine Day, and we don't like those characters. Jane is certainly a character that you're rooting for. You want her to succeed. You want her to get out of this. This is a good one. Well worth a look if you like mysteries, because it is a mystery, or science fiction, or escape rooms. All right, and here we go. We're at the end for August. Number 1, I found it on HBO, and it's from 2013, and it is titled Enemy. Now, it stars Jake Gyllenhaal, which is a step up for Jake, and I'm sure he's really upset. He cares what Cinema Wellman thinks, but he was in the worst movie I saw last month, and he bounces back, and he's in the best movie that I saw this month. Enemy has a pretty simple synopsis on IMDb. Here it is. A man seeks out his exact look-alike after spotting him in a movie. And that's simple. But this film, by the great director Denis Villeneuve, is anything but simple. Now, we're talking about doppelgangers. We're not talking about time travel. We're talking about 2 exact versions of Jake Gyllenhaal existing in the same plane of time. And whenever stories involve doppelgangers, they tend to get messy. What can you do? What can you do? Well, with doppelgangers, usually you can interact. It's not like one of those time travel things where you're going to cease to exist in one version or the other. Strong performances by Gyllenhaal. You're never quite sure. Obviously, he plays 2 characters. You're never quite sure what they're going to do. One of the taglines, or one of the lines mentioned in this film, is chaos is order yet undeciphered. And it's definitely one of those films that makes you think, what would I do? All right. All those survival movies, right? Open Water, Fall. Have you seen this trailer yet? It's a new film, Fall. Look that up. Look at that trailer. Survival movies like that. You kind of think, you can't help but think, oh my goodness, what would I do if I was in that situation? Well, in this case, you ask yourself that question watching Enemy. What would I do? What would I do? Well, yeah, you wouldn't do this. This is a dandy. One more thing I should mention, it is not for arachnophobes. You've been warned. Well, that's the breakdown for August. You got my bottom 5, you got my top 10, delivered as always without spoilers. If you want any of these spoiled, I will be happy to play spoiler. Shoot me an email at cinemawellman@gmail.com, and I will explain and give away all the secrets to all the films and answer all the questions that you may have. So that's it for this episode. Follow us on Instagram and on Twitter. It's at Cinema Wellman. Like and subscribe on YouTube and on Spotify. And coming next week, our next episode is going to be sports movies. And that was a suggestion by one of my viewers/listeners came up with, I'm interested in what your top sports movies are. So ask and you shall receive. And that's coming up next week. And until then, take care and we will talk soon.